I saw my wife wrapped in another man's arms. My heart shattered. But minutes later, what she told me at our front door froze me in fear. The evening had started like any other. I was driving home from work, tired but content, thinking about the dinner my wife Sarah had promised to cook. We had been married for 6 years, and though life had its usual ups and downs, I trusted her completely. As I turned onto our street, something felt different. The porch light was off, which was unusual because Sarah always kept it on for me. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as an unexplainable unease crept into my chest. I told myself it was nothing, just a forgotten switch, but deep inside, a small voice warned me that something was wrong. I had no idea that in the next few minutes, my entire world would collapse and then twist into something far more terrifying than betrayal. As I parked the car in the driveway, I noticed a shadow moving near the side of our house, close to the garden. My heart began to race. I stepped out quietly, curiosity mixing with a growing dread I could not explain. Walking slowly toward the sound, I peered around the corner and froze. There was Sarah, standing close to a man I did not recognize, his arms wrapped tightly around her. For a moment, the world around me went silent. I could not hear the wind, the crickets, or my own breathing. All I could see was my wife in another man's embrace, her face buried against his shoulder, as if she belonged there. Every memory of our wedding day, our promises, and our life together seemed to shatter in that single instant. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but my voice caught in my throat. Instead, I stepped back into the shadows, my mind spinning with questions I was too afraid to ask out loud. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? Had everything we built together been a lie? My chest tightened painfully, and I felt tears sting my eyes, though I refused to let them fall. I watched a moment longer, hoping desperately that I had misunderstood what I was seeing, that there was some innocent explanation. But the way she clung to him, the way his hand rested gently on her back, told a story I did not want to believe. I turned away, my legs feeling weak beneath me, and walked back toward the front door, unsure of what I would say when she finally came inside. Minutes felt like hours as I stood on the porch, waiting. My mind raced through 100 different scenarios, each one more painful than the last. Should I confront her immediately? Should I pretend I saw nothing and wait for her to confess on her own? I paced back and forth, my thoughts a chaotic storm of anger, sorrow, and disbelief. I thought about our first date, the way she used to laugh at my terrible jokes, the nights we stayed up talking about our dreams for the future. None of it made sense anymore. I felt like a stranger in my own life, questioning everything I once believed to be true. The porch light remained off, and the darkness around me seemed to mirror the darkness settling into my heart. Finally, I heard footsteps approaching, and Sarah appeared at the edge of the driveway, alone now, her expression unreadable in the dim light. She looked tired, almost frightened, and for a moment, I forgot my anger and simply stared at her, searching her face for answers. She walked toward me slowly, and I noticed her hands were trembling. This was not the reaction of someone caught in an affair, feeling guilty or defensive. This was something else entirely, something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I opened my mouth to ask about the man I had seen, but before I could speak, she reached the front door and grabbed my arm with surprising urgency, her eyes wide with something that looked disturbingly like terror. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking, "don't ask questions right now. Just get inside and lock the door." Her words caught me completely off guard. I had expected accusations, denials, or perhaps tearful confessions, but not this. Not fear. I stood frozen on the porch, staring at her, trying to process what was happening. The anger I had been carrying moments before began to dissolve, replaced by a creeping sense of dread that felt even worse than heartbreak. Something was very wrong, and had nothing to do with romance or betrayal. Sarah's grip on my arm tightened as she practically pulled me through the doorway, glancing nervously over her shoulder toward the shadows of our yard, as if she expected someone or something to be watching us. Once inside, she quickly locked the door and pressed her back against it, breathing heavily as though she had been running for her life. I finally found my voice and demanded to know who that man was and why she was wrapped in his arms in our own yard. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of guilt and desperation that made my stomach twist into knots. She told me his name was Daniel, and that he was not a lover, but someone from her past, a person she had hoped never to see again. Her voice cracked as she explained that years before we met, she had witnessed something terrible, something that had forced her into hiding under a different identity, and Daniel was somehow connected to that hidden chapter of her life. I stood there in stunned silence, trying to absorb what she was telling me. My wife, the woman I thought I knew completely, was revealing a secret past I had never even suspected existed. She explained that Daniel had once been part of a dangerous situation involving people who did not take betrayal lightly, and that seeing him again meant they had finally found her after all these years of careful hiding. The embrace I witnessed was not affection, but her way of trying to calm him down, to convince him not to hurt either of us, because he had come to deliver a warning, not a romantic reunion. My anger evaporated entirely, replaced by a cold, creeping fear as I realized the danger might not be over. Sarah's hands continued to tremble as she spoke, her eyes darting toward the windows as if she expected shadows to move outside at any moment. She explained that the people from her past believed she had taken something from them years ago, something valuable that she swore she never had. Daniel had come to warn her that they were closing in, that they had discovered where she lived, and that our peaceful life together was about to be shattered in ways far worse than any affair could cause. I felt my chest tighten as the pieces started falling into place, and I understood why the porch light had been off, why she had been outside in the dark, and why fear had replaced any trace of guilt on her face. I asked her why she never told me any of this before, and she broke down, admitting that she had wanted to protect me from a danger she believed she had escaped forever. She had built a new identity, a new life, and had genuinely believed those dark days were behind her when she met me. Marrying me, she said, was the first time she had felt truly safe in years, and she could not bear the thought of dragging me into a nightmare she thought had ended long ago. Her confession explained the embrace I witnessed, revealing it as an act of desperate diplomacy rather than romance, an attempt to buy time and protect our home from people who clearly meant serious harm to both of us. As she finished speaking, a loud knock echoed through the house, causing both of us to freeze in place. Sarah's face went pale, and she whispered that it might already be too late, that whoever Daniel represented may have followed him to our doorstep. My heart pounded violently in my chest as I realized the true horror of the situation was only beginning to unfold. This was not simply about jealousy or broken trust anymore. It was about survival, about protecting the woman I loved from a past that refused to stay buried. I moved toward the door cautiously, unsure of what waited on the other side, while Sarah stood behind me, gripping my shoulder tightly, silently praying that our nightmare would not escalate any further that night. I looked through the peephole and saw Daniel standing there again, alone this time, his expression grim and urgent rather than threatening. When I opened the door slightly, he spoke quickly, warning us that we needed to leave the house immediately, that the people searching for Sarah had traced her location and could arrive at any moment. He explained that he had come ahead of them, risking his own safety, to give her one last chance to escape before it became too late for everyone involved. Sarah grabbed my hand tightly, her eyes filled with unshed tears, and I realized that the marriage I thought I understood completely was about to be tested in ways neither of us could have ever imagined possible. In that terrifying moment, I understood that my heartbreak over what I thought was infidelity was nothing compared to the fear now gripping both of us. The woman I loved was not a stranger because she had betrayed me, but because she had spent years protecting me from a truth too dangerous to share. As we grabbed our essentials and prepared to flee into the night, I realized our story was far from over, that whatever came next would define not just our marriage, but our survival. What I had seen in the yard was never about lost love, but about a desperate woman trying to shield the people she cared about most, and now, together, we would have to face whatever darkness followed us out that door.